hand it over to Yi-Hsian, who's going to take it from here as our moderator.
Hi, thanks, Susie. Hi, everyone. I'm Yi-Hsian Godfrey. I am CEO and co-founder of Apiari. We are a curated childcare platform for the $648 billion household market. I am not a technical founder. I am a non-technical co-founder, but I am really excited to be here to be leading this conversation with all these great engineers and learning a little bit more from them about how they progress in their careers. Furthermore, I'm also here to talk a little bit about what I look for as a non-technical founder when I build out my tech team, and I'm always looking for great talent. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our panelists, and I'm going to ask them to start introducing themselves. And also starting off with our first question, what was your first engineering job? So let me kick it off to Christina.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here tonight. I'm Christine Chapman. After 5 years as a software engineer, I transitioned to engineering management, where I've been the last 3 years. I started my career at Amazon and recently accepted a role at a startup. Also outside of engineering management, I run Changing the Story, which is focused on helping early career women in tech succeed in the workplace. My first tech job was in a biochemistry lab at Scripps Research, and I would write programs to determine what experiments to run, and then would myself do a terrible job of actually running the experiment, which is why I moved more to the software side, but it was an interesting job.
Great. Let me call on Shashi as our next panelist.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here with the Women in Tech. I am Shashi Jayalakshmi. I'm currently working as a senior solutions architect with Amazon Web Services. I've been with AWS for almost a year. And prior to that, I worked 16 years or so in different software development roles across various companies. So about my first engineering job, some of you may have got the first engineering job right out of college, but I wasn't that lucky one. So I finished my master's in computer science, and I did send my resumes to a lot of companies, but I initially worked in a private sector bank as a relationship officer. That helped me pay my rent and expenses, all those things, and while I continued to hunt for my software job. So I landed my job after 6 months of finishing my master's as a software engineer in Wipro Technologies in Bangalore. And from then, I worked solely in the software development side.
Great. Rekha, are you with us?
Hey, guys. Thank you so much for having me here today. And it's amazing connecting with so many different people out here. And I really look forward to it. Yeah, a bit about me. So I'm currently based out of Bay Area. I'm heading a product team at Taco Bell. So think of like the food ordering experience, the mobile app experience that we offer to our customers. So that's an area that I currently manage and head with Taco Bell. Have been in tech for almost 17 plus years now. Recent, like obviously last over a decade, I've spent my time building products, even killing products, acquiring products. So have tried multiple things. And prior to that, I was in consulting roles, architecture roles, but I did start as an engineer. So my first job was during my college, like I did like an internship, and I think it was a C++ program that I had no idea what to do, but somehow I figured out and I got my internship done. But that was my like first engineering job, hands-on, like kind of learning like what computer programming is. Never wanted to be a software engineer. I think it was my dad who was an engineer, so pushed me hard to become an engineer. So I think it was just like the genetical thing that was happening versus saying that, hey, I was an aspiring software engineer. Thank you.
And Kreena, last but not least.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here. I'm Kreena Mehta, the Solution and Product Manager at Salesforce. I'm very excited to be here and share some of my stories and learn more about you all. My first job was as a software engineer at HP, where I was writing the code all in the back end to make sure that our enterprise companies are able to connect to one another. But ever since then, I've moved as a tech lead, as a people manager, as a product manager at ASICS. And most recently, actually, this week itself, I moved into a product role at Salesforce. And very excited to be here today. Thank you.
Congratulations on your new role. And I think this is a great start for our next question, which is, for Kreena and Rekha, both of you, for Christina and Sashi, did you guys ever imagine yourself in the current roles that you are now back when you first started, your first engineering job? And like, tell us a little bit about how you kind of navigated from that first job to where you are now.
I can go first, I guess. Yeah. So I think for me, very early on in my career as a software engineer, people would often tell me that they saw me becoming a manager someday or whatever, but that was actually not what I saw. And usually when people would say that, I was like, why are people saying that? I was kind of concerned. So for me, I didn't really start off with like a robust plan with, checking off every box or anything like that. And I actually would say when I talk to a lot of people newer to their careers, I feel like there can be this fear that, and I feel like I had it too, that if you don't have your whole career planned out, that things are going to go poorly or something like that. But I actually challenge you. I bet if you talk to a lot of your coworkers, most people actually don't have a robust plan that they're working towards. And most people are kind of just approaching things like year by year, opportunity by opportunity, which is not to say that you can't have a plan, but I think it's also okay to just kind of take things one step at a time. So for me, I didn't really set out to become a manager, but over time, what I noticed was that the types of things I was interested in, the types of problems I like solving, the moments of my day that stood out to me that I really enjoyed the most did ultimately correspond with being a manager. And for me, that looked like I really liked having one-on-one meetings with people where we would try to solve a problem they were having on the team. And I really liked kind of understanding like, here's what some of our biggest issues are as a team. If we could only fix this, this is going to make a huge difference. And ultimately, those were the types of problems I was interested in solving rather than me being the person writing the code or anything like that. So I did a lot of reflection about what I was enjoying day to day, what I would like to do in the long term. I read this book, which is called Designing Your Life, which I definitely recommend. And all that came together. And that was how I decided to become a manager.
Great. Sashi?
Yeah, that was wonderful, Christina. My story is different. So I have not imagined at all to be, set out to be a solution architect. So I'll start a little bit back. So when I was a school kid, I wanted to be a journalist. But once I started learning Visual Basic, I realized that I really enjoyed programming. And then I decided to do master's in computer science. And I enjoyed programming. That is one part. And I also saw there was a demand in software roles at the time in Bangalore, which was kind of like the biggest city next to my hometown. So the two things, right? I love programming and the job opportunities and want to go away from home and work in a city, which was near to me. So those were the things that drew me to this. And so after that, if I look back, I enjoyed every opportunity that was presented to me. I didn't say no to many of these opportunities. And right now, I'm really enjoying the role of a solution architect. So this was also presented as an opportunity to me, and I didn't say no to it. So I'm looking back to this, and I honestly think that this was what my passion was, and I just embarked on the journey and went with that. I didn't set out the plan X, Y, Z, and then went on with that. So similar to Christina, but different role.
Sasha, I'm just going to stay with you for a minute there, just to play off on what you just shared with us. When you have new opportunities presented to you, how did you decide to say yes to them? Like, were you thinking intentionally on building a certain skill set? Were you thinking of going deep in a certain area? Like, how did you decide when new opportunities come, whether or not you should take them?
So I'll give you an example, right? So my first turning point as a tech lead was in another company where I started off with Pro Technologies. I worked there. I enjoyed building technologies, tools, and working with a team. And then I had my kids, so I moved around, and then I started again as a software engineer. And one day my manager came and asked me, "Do you want to be a lead? Because our current lead has moved on to become an architect, and we have that position open, and we think that you are the best fit for that." I just had my 2-year-old kid with me, and I know that if I take up this opportunity, am I going to go completely? Am I going to give 100% to this opportunity? Am I going to get successful in it? Then I told him, I'm going to take this up. it's presented to me, and I came back to home and I told my husband, I'm going to do this. Why? Because I love to do that. The thing is, it was not like, something is backing me off, and I know that I can do this. Maybe I have to spend a little bit of my more time to give 100% on what I do, but I knew that this is something I like to do. It never felt like a work for me, So I always suggest that if you like something, you will actually do it and you'll get successful, even if you don't think you're 100% there yet. So that's how I did it.
I think that is true for everything in life. If you enjoy it, it never feels like work, right?
Yep.
So for my next question, I'm going to ask Kreena and Rekha to help me answer this one. What skills have been most beneficial to you during your career journey so far?
I guess I can go first. Okay, cool. Thanks, Rekha. Yeah, so as I mentioned, I have moved across many different roles served as an individual contributor, as a people manager, and back as an individual contributor. So I do feel that the two of the most beneficial skill sets that have helped me in my journey are communications and teamwork. Communication skills can include speaking, writing, or listening. But in today's world, all the employers want to onboard employees that can articulate their thoughts, their ideas, and their vision very effectively, and are also able to empathize and build relationships with other coworkers, with their stakeholders, and with the and with people itself, right? Like, you have to work to get to a common vision. So getting through that requires a very effective skill set using communications, which brings me to my second skill set that I mentioned was teamwork. And whether you are an individual contributor or a manager or a leader, I think having a team spirit and building that kind of motivation within the team is something really companies and organizations today look forward to. So being appreciated as a team lead or as an individual contributor, having both, I feel, has helped me throughout my career so far.
Great.
No, that's great, Kreena. Resonates a lot with me. I think for me, more than skills, if I could say behaviors, right? I think I would say three of them for me personally has worked very well, from where I was to where I am, and having seen those ups and downs in my career, right? I think first thing I would say is, I generally go with this principle or a discipline that do something because you care for it. Whatever profession you are in, like whether you are an engineer, you are a lead, you are a manager, I think care and do it. Just don't do it because someone is asking you to do it. I think that's, to me at least, I have had times when I did that and I was not successful. And I felt that that was not the right recipe. So being passionate about what I really want to do, truly caring for the cause of whatever I build, whatever I do, I think that's something I keep doing it. The second thing that I would say is every conversation, every person during my 17, 18 years of journey, every time I meet a new person, I think there has been a learning. I always like to go with an open mind and not do no, hey, I know, no, how do you be that person with open mind? I think that's a skill that I've learned over a period of time. I still feel that I'm a learner, whatever I do, wherever I go and whosoever I talk to, I think there is something to take away, right? So having that open mind. Last but not the least, ask, right? I think as a woman, I think we do this a lot to us, we tend to hold ourselves. And I think ask for support. It's okay. I mean, there are times I have had people told me hey, don't switch professions. I came from engineering to product, and I've had people tell me if you switch professions, you will go down the career path and you will struggle and all of that. But I think for me, it's about trying it out, asking for help. I have had times where I had to ask for support, whether it's from the family friend or professional friend. So I would say constantly asking for what I need, keeping that open mind, being passionate towards what you're doing, I think has helped me a long way. And I think it helps me do my daily thing and go a long way further.
That's great. I'm so glad that both of you mentioned a lot of your soft skills that have helped you along your career. I know that for me as a CEO and co-founder, when I'm looking for a tech team, I'm always looking for people who can communicate very well, but also have the ability to solve problems. and not necessarily come back with me in code on what those solutions are, right? To be able to present it in a very layman term that is relatable not only to our end users, but also to the entire company, whether they are technical or non-technical. So super happy that you guys mentioned that. I'm going to also ask Shashi and Christina to chime in. How did you guys think about whether to stay as a, and I think Shashi, you're an individual contributor, are you thinking of tell us a little bit more about how you decided to continue to stay on the individual contributor track. And is that something that you're continuing on moving forward? And Christina, for you, you talked a little bit about how you moved in from, individual contributor to people leader. So I'd love to hear maybe a little bit more of the skill set that you had to build from doing an individual contributor over to a leader. Sasha, you want to take this one first?
Sure. I worked in teams, right? And I led the teams. I managed the team for a short stint. But yes, a solution architect is an individual contributor role. But I get to work across all the teams. I think I enjoy applying my skills, the technical skills, and solving the business challenges than managing people, which is better left to folks who are very good at it. I think the more technical the job gets, it is suits an individual contributor. So let me give an example. In my previous company, when I started taking up the solution architecture role, I didn't have any clue of how networking works. Okay, so I was coming from an application side of things and database technology side of things, and I was working with a team who is setting up something in SQL Server which needs no networking deep in. So I was working with that person and trying to understand how to get connection things working across different networks. Okay, so I'm learning that, doing that on the job, on the work for a week, and I really enjoyed it. I never knew this thing. You learn, you work with some very bright minds, learn something, implement it, and you work it and run it in production. And the next week I'm working with another team. They are trying to implement a database that is like storing information on one place if people are not from tech. So that's where you store the database, and we are working with a team who is trying to implement a global database, which means you can deploy something in US, something in Europe. So I'm working with that team on solving those challenges. So those are the challenges, and you're trying to make a system that work across your company and across your enterprise, and you deploy to production, and you see it successful working, and you see your end users are happy. That gives you such a happiness or job satisfaction, which I really enjoy, which I did not get when I managed people. Sorry, Christina. So that's where I think, that when I stuck to my individual contributor role. So that's something I liked, I enjoyed. That's something I can grow into. So that's why I'm staying here. So looking back over these years, like 16 years, I think I made the right decision by doing this.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
and I think there's a lot of misconception that, the only way up is through management. And I think a lot of times we don't give enough credit to the individual contributors that are on our team that, makes the ship run day in and day out. Christina, go ahead.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that you're also highlighting it's really important to find what you're interested and passionate about, because nothing is worse. I'm sure we can all imagine this in our own lives than someone becoming a manager who clearly doesn't want to be a manager and is there for other reasons. So I think it's all, it's all important for us to identify what are we motivated by, what do we want to focus on next. For me, when I became manager, and I think for everyone, there's different things. Some of the things that I was learning and needed to focus on was, focusing on what's best for the team versus maybe what I would naturally do. I was someone who had a lot of strong opinions on things, whether that was how to design something or whether that was how to run a certain thing. And so thinking about what is really best for the team, and also what is the great, how do we balance the long-term versus the short-term things on the team. I need to learn a lot more about strategy and vision and roadmaps and all of that. So those are some of the things that I was learning about, but no one starts off knowing everything. And so you kind of take the skills that you already have that are why someone would trust you with becoming a manager, and you build off of those slowly over time. Another thing I'll say on the individual contributor versus management side of things is when I was considering becoming a manager, a fear that I had was that you really wanted to stay on the individual contributor track as long as possible so that you were more technical and would be better perceived in the long term. Obviously, I can only speak to what I've seen so far, but I think that something that really motivated me was the idea that you don't have to really pick a side and stick with it forever. Lots of people, I'm sure you can think of people at your own companies, do try out management, go back to individual contributor, maybe even do that multiple times. And that really applies across a lot of different roles. There's nothing wrong with trying something out, for a short period of time, for a longer period of time, deciding it's not for you. And I think when I stepped back, it was really just that fear that I wouldn't be able to go back to the role was the main thing. That was why I wasn't sure I wanted to become a manager. And ultimately, I found that's not a great reason to do something, like fear that you can't go back. So with that, I kind of took the leap knowing if I did want to become an engineer, I'm sure I could always do it again in the future with the right amount of, studying or practicing. And I've personally found that I really enjoy management. So at the moment, I'm not planning on going back, but knowing that I could, for me, gave me the confidence to do it.
Well, great. I have a question for Rekha, because your role is very interesting, right? As a product leader, you probably have a team that reports directly into you, and you probably have dotted lines everywhere. Talk a little bit about the skill sets that's really needed to manage up, down, horizontally, and what skill sets really set you up. And how did you know that you like doing this type of reporting role?
Yeah, so I think there are two types of, as everybody knows, hard skills and soft skills. So to me, I have had times where I worked in a well-oiled machine setup, where it is a very clear delineation between one team to other team. So you are in the product, you run a product team, and then you have a separate set of engineers, and then you have designers, you have QE engineers, and then you have marketing team, legal team, operations. So there is this whole cross-functional setup that you have. And usually in my experience, the way it works is I think it starts with defining the value and impact and the outcomes that you could drive, right? I think as long as we are all aligned and marching towards the common goal, I think that's the recipe for kind of success. And when you go deep into understanding, at least for me, my product team is responsible for product strategy all the way to go to market, define the vision strategy. So we are more focused on what and why behind the things that we are doing. Whereas now I have partners like engineers and design partners who are making that happen, right? But no, obviously you are defining that life cycle of how you want to build things. You have clear delineation of the roles and responsibilities that you have. But I think everybody has a different skill set in my point of view. Yes, there could be things around communication, ability to influence, the cross-functional partnership, these are more soft skills. But when it comes to hard skills, as a product, I would think the product mindset, am I building the right things? Is this the right thing to do for the customers, right? And then how am I doing that story for my engineers or for my designers to make sure they know what to build and where to build and why to build, right? So I think it's a life cycle. So one person is dependent on the other. At the end, we are all working towards the common outcome. So to me, it's like a chain reaction, right? That's how I like to put that. So usually it's a journey that we do together, but in that journey, each one of us exhibit different hard and soft skills.
Great. Well, let me just kind of recap what we have shared and heard so far. It sounds like there is no one path in engineering and in tech. And it sounds like it's also about really knowing yourself, knowing where you have the most interest and most satisfaction and most joy in the work that you're doing. And that seems to be the best path to success, whether you're an individual contributor or a people leader or a blended product manager who leads team and influence as well. So, for a lot of our folks who are starting off in their career, and I see a couple of folks in boot camps, there just seems to be so many choices and opportunities. How do you guys find the opportunities? Where do you find visibility? Talk to me a little bit about the role that advocacy has helped you in your career progression at your companies. So let me start off with Christina. I think you had some ideas there about finding opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. So I think for me, I think getting a lot of support from my managers, as well as just having a strong network, I think have been two of the biggest things. And obviously, you know, at various times in your careers, you might have a manager who's like very proactive about these things, and you might have someone that's maybe less proactive about these things. But I think a general approach is, rather than saying like, I want to be X, like, why am I not at X yet? Or something like that, which depending on the manager, I think could have negative reactions. I think overall, you know, saying, you know, in the future, I'd like to get to this role. What do you think are the biggest gaps for me to get there? What do you think are the biggest opportunities or things I need to work on to improve in that area? If you get those, like, write them down, you can share them with them. This is what I'm working on. Start working on those, and then like check in every like 3 to 6 months and say, hey, I think I've improved in this area. Like, what do you think? Do you have additional feedback in this area? I think when you approach it like that, you're both getting it on their radar. And a lot of these roles don't necessarily come up all the time. So it's important that it's on their radar early on. And especially when they can see that you're like responding to feedback, really sincerely working on that, I think you're going to build a lot of trust. And I think that you're going to be a lot more likely to be thought of as roles come up. I think another one is building your network. And I think that can be really hard to do these days, especially if your company, you know, went remote and, you know, depending on how easy it is to meet people outside of your team. But I think whenever you work with someone, even in a casual way, maybe they're helping you on a project in a certain way, I think there's always a great opportunity to follow up with them later and say, hey, you know, this actually launched this week. Thanks for your help. Here's some impact. People love to hear stuff like that. And I think you'll really stand out in their mind. I think when you have an opportunity to work with people in meetings, make an effort to introduce yourself, be visible, maybe again, follow up or say, you know, I appreciate your comment here. I actually had a question about X. And volunteer at events, whether that's like a recruiting event or an opportunity to speak, to be on a committee. You don't want to overload yourself with that all the time, but all of these things over time cause you to be someone that is well known within the organization. And when you're well known, people are more likely to trust you with things because they've seen evidence that you're going above and beyond and all of that. I think more broadly, think about people that you know at work that are highly visible, that lots of people look up to or see as a role model, and maybe just ask them, like, how did you get here? What were some things you did when you were in my position, and kind of go from there.
Great. And Kreena, since you just recently had landed a new job outside of your old company, talk a little bit about how you found these opportunities outside. You know, did you have advocacy? You know, how did you build those relationships? And also, I think you also had some interesting feedback for those who are on visas, you know, how to handle that, especially in job searching with a foreign visa.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what my experience is a really good segue from what just Christine mentioned is how do we talk to some of the leaders that are highly visible in our organization? So I had a very similar experience, and I'm going to share with one of my examples from my previous job, which was at ASICS Digital. My manager back then, I knew that she had moved from engineering to product, and that is something I was really passionate about. So I started talking to her about her experiences, her challenges, what are some of the things that she faced early in her career, and try to navigate her way through. And learning from her experiences is something I imbibed in myself to take the next step. However, to your question, Yi-Hsian, like getting into this new role and advocating for myself, since I started learning a lot about product, I knew that that was something I want to explore further, and I want to explore it from an angle that I've never seen before. So being at ASICS, I was in a B2C market, which is business to direct to consumer, and taking a step forward for me naturally was understanding a business to business market, which is how do I design and provide solutions for product management for other businesses out there. So trying, first of all, like learning my passion was my first step. And once I started learning it, I started engaging with folks from my network. So based on what Christine mentioned, my experience was very similar. I started talking to other people whom I knew, other women and other leaders in the same field that I knew through different channels to try and understand what's out there and taking next steps and engaging myself with different leaders from there on. So that's how I made my journey through one company to the other. However, definitely being an immigrant has had a very different experience throughout the journey and throughout the life cycle that I've had through the job movement. However, one thing that I have experienced in my process is not every organization or every job position would advertise or would mention if there would be an eligibility for visa sponsorship. However, one advice that someone gave to me, and something that I would also like to share with other immigrants, if there are any on this call here, is that even if that is not something that you see on a job description, do not hesitate to reach out to the hiring manager or the immigration team of that company, because more often than not, there are organizations in today's world, and particularly in the US, that offer it. And when you mention your passion and how you will be applying your skill sets toward that particular organization, there are tons and tons of possibility that can open up from there. And lastly, before closing out, just another experience that I would like to share here, particularly for immigration experiences, is I completed my graduation in computer science, and moving from an engineering position into product management was something I didn't know whether it was possible for me or not. And a lot of folks in the interim did mention that that you are an engineer and being on a visa, it's not something you can easily switch around. However, there were other team members of mine who were really supportive, and they did share tons and tons of resources that made it possible for me to get through. So never hesitate to ask for support and help.
Yeah, that's another common thing that we're hearing from our panel today, right? It's, don't be afraid to ask. And just, plugging in on the chat that I think, Women Who Code have already listed a bunch of references that our kind panelists have shared with us in advance. So, make sure you check those out. And also building a network is what I'm hearing from you guys. And also our panelists today have also kindly shared their LinkedIn profile link. So be sure to connect and to build your own network, because that is important no matter which career you decide to choose and whichever path you go on. But in terms of advocacy, I love to ask Shashi to talk a little bit about compensation. It's one of these big topics, especially women in tech. How do we ensure that we are compensated fairly? And also just a plug-in that there is going to be a fuller salary negotiation workshop coming up. So Shashi, just on a high level, any tips for the engineers here today on thinking about compensation and how to get more visibility and making sure they're getting paid fairly?
Sure. We all know compensation is very important. You want to not only enjoy working, right, but also want to get paid fair and square. And these days, it's not just the monetary part. We want, some people want to work on latest technologies. Kreena mentioned she wanted to work on products, right? So what is your passion? And do you have the flexibility in work hours? People who has kids wants flexibility in work hours. And do you want to travel, or currently, do you want the commute involved, or let's say the absence of it? Currently we are all working from home, but do you want to commute? Or so there are many things that we want the package to be have. And sometimes it's the teammates that we are working in. It's not just the monetary part. Are you enjoying the work that you're doing with the people around you? So there is a lot of things involved. And for the monetary part, so you have to prioritize according to all the requirements that you have to prioritize. And you still think that your monetary part is still not what you think you are adequately paid for. There are ample avenues to do the research for. You can look at the LinkedIn profile, LinkedIn, to see what's the salary across the companies. And you can also look at Glassdoor to see what the, is the company paying, because there will be actual reviews done by the employees itself there. And levels.fii is another website where you can actually find where your salary is. And for visa holders, which Kreena just mentioned, there is H1B website publicly available, which shows what's the salary range. So once you know that, are you getting paid the right amount based on your experience, and you think that you still deserve more, don't hesitate a bit. please go ask for it. And
Fantastic.
yeah, so one more thing I want to say, since you already mentioned, AWS has a lot of openings. I know some people are here asking for how can they do the career switch. So we have openings from, or for all levels. You don't have to have a lot of experience. So we have offers, job available for, starting solution architecture role to, a principal solution architect role available across US. So if you think you want to apply for that role, please reach out to me on LinkedIn and just mention Women Who Code. I'll make sure that, I'll connect you with the recruiter or with the hiring manager. Just want to let you know. Thank
Great.
you.
I'm sure that you'll get lots of LinkedIn requests right after this panel discussion tonight. So for our last question, before we go into, audience Q&A, this is going to be a question for all of you guys. What advice would you have given your younger self? So I am going to start with Rekha.
If I would have done something, taken more risk and try out more things. I think I have been in the same position as Kreena. So when I came into this country 15, 16 years ago, I was on visa, had immigration challenges, and it had its own limitations. So it always had a bottleneck. Like I really wanted to try things, but there was always this risk and the fear in the mind that I will lose my status and I'll be deported back and things of that sort. So, it's all about try things, taking risk as early as you can. At the end, there could be failures, right? It's okay, but at least you would have tried things. Wish I had done that, right? I think I've come a long way now. But yeah, I think that was my younger self. If you guys can try things, try for it. It's okay to fail and we all learn from it. So I would just say go try out, live your life, and the dreams that you want to go do it, just do it.
Great. Christine, how about you?
I would say lean into your strengths. I think there's a lot of thought put into how to improve your weaknesses, and that's great. But I actually think you can get further by focusing a lot on your strengths, especially if that aligns with the role you eventually want. And I also think that be empowered by the fact that I think the skills that you have and what you're bringing to the team will eventually be valued by the right team or the right role. And so keep looking for that.
Great. And let me first just ask that the audience, if you guys have any other questions, I know that there were some already in the chat. If you have other questions, please start typing them in before we open it up for questions from you guys. Kreena, do you want to tell us a little bit about what advice you would give your younger self?
Yeah, so I guess if I had to say something when I started my career, I would say be your sparkling self. Leave your mark with the knowledge and the passion and what you truly believe in, and the sky's the limit.
Great. Sashi?
So knowing what I know now, I would say don't hold back when pursuing an opportunity. Thinking that you are not 100% ready yet, you will never be. So go for it. You will learn on the job, whatever it may be. That's my first advice to you. Go for it. I never held back, and I'm really happy I never did that. And there were people who helped me. Okay, so I just want to let you know that. And other thing is ask for what you want. Whether it's a job function, location, you want to work on a particular technology, money, whatever it is, ask for it and know when it's time to walk away from whatever you are. The third one is don't burn bridges. There might be a reason why the person you're asking may not be able to do something for you. We don't know yet. So it's a small world. Don't burn bridges. You would never know when your path's gonna cross again. So these are the three things I want to let you all know. Thank you.
Fantastic. I think those are really great parting advice. Yes, I've also heard that men, when they go for jobs that they have no qualification for, but they go for 100%. And women always feel like they have to prove that they can do the job before they accept the job. So I'm so glad that you ended on that note to make all of us, push a little harder and believe in ourselves a bit more than we probably do today. So with that, let me turn it over to questions. I invite the audience member, if you guys are on mute, to unmute yourself to ask your question or to put it into chat. Susie, I don't know if we had some other questions that we have not addressed yet. I believe there's one about career changing.
Yeah,
I'm
so
not
there
sure
were
if
two
we'd answer that.
people. Yeah, there were two people that were asking for advice for career changers. So I don't know if any of you have advice for people who are changing careers. I'm not sure if you guys want to unmute and ask specifically, like, are you asking what types of things to take or how to get your first job? What are you looking for in terms of advice there?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm Jacqueline Johnson, and I'm a complete newbie. I'm trying to teach myself online. I put in the chat, I'm doing some classes on Code Academy, LinkedIn, and I'm taking a class November 1st at RISD, interactive design. And I just wanted some advice for the ladies since they've been in this field for quite some time. What is a good way to start and a good path to get your foot in the door as a entry-level person? What advice would you give someone in my position? I've spent the past 20 years in an advocacy law firm advocating for people with disabilities as an intake specialist, administrative assistant. So the whole tech area is new to me, although my degree is in film and media, but I want to pursue tech. And so I don't, I want to do it as fast as possible. I don't want to waste a lot of time. So I was just wondering, what advice would you give to me?
Yeah, I can take a stab at that, and anyone else has additional advice. But first of all, I think it's great you're here and seeking out this career transition. That's awesome. I think the main advice I would give, and I think it affects people, I think, regardless of when they're doing the career changes. I think when you're starting out, there can be this tendency to like want to get any tech job, and therefore you kind of like overextend yourself in terms of like, I'll take a class about X, I'll take a class about Y, and I'll take a class about this. And that's ultimately going to make it harder to get your first tech job, because let's say you want to be like a front-end web developer, like focusing more of your energy on getting ready to pass a front-end web developer interview to have a portfolio that's going to get your resume noticed, like that's going to be more effective than like also learning about machine learning and also learning about, like, in my opinion, people might disagree, but I would kind of identify what would you like your first role to be. It doesn't have to be your role forever in tech. And if it's hard to decide, I would maybe like pick one or talk to a few people who did career changes, and then from there, like work backwards and focus your like learning and resume and portfolio all towards getting that one job, rather than like overextending yourself to getting any entry level job.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I can probably add to pitch in what Kristen said. I think finding a mentor probably would help, Jacqueline. Like, at least for me, who have done career transition, I've always found helpful to have a mentor who has done something similar, so you can kind of tap on those learnings. But then eventually, like, doing some job shadow. So like, if it's possible, like within the same company, if you're able to pivot, change your careers, like job shadowing, yes, it also comes with like some extra stretch. But sometimes, like, doing that job shadow will help you get hands-on and learn, like, hey, is this the right thing that I want to go behind? At least for me personally, that has worked well. Like, before I decided, yes, this is the job that I want to be in, or this is the career path that I want to be in.
Thank you so much.
Jacqueline, I also just share that, you do have 20 years of experience in legal profession, so that's something that you shouldn't discount. And maybe the next step that is to Christine's point about not stretching yourself too far is to look for tech jobs in legal. It may not be the industry you want to stay in, but you have so much knowledge and experience in that field that you can know all the problems that they're probably trying to solve with tech and be able to articulate and present yourself in such a way that even though you're lacking in tech skills, you're making up in understanding the industry so well that might land you in a better position for your first role in tech and legal.
Thank you so much. That's a great point. Thank you.
Great. Do we have any other questions?
Hi. Hi guys, my name is Tanashi. I came late, sorry about that. But I'm very new to coding. I actually started WWCode about 3 weeks ago and I'm about to finish the basic. And my question is, how I enjoy coding, but I'm not sure which part of coding I'm into. Do I want to be a developer? Do I want to be so many other things? And I'm just overwhelmed. And since WWCode's basics about to end, are there other platforms should I focus on? Is there any other like coding methods I can learn besides WWCode, or is that one? Would you guys recommend that? And I am rambling right now. Wow.
I can probably speak a little bit to that. So when I first started my career journey, something that really helped me personally were some of the courses on Udemy and Coursera. I'm happy to share some of the courses that I have taken, but when I first started, it had very basic explanation and very good explanation with examples that helped me understand and build my foundation really strong. As well as at the end of every course, there was like a mini test and then a major test that helped me understand where I stand, within myself and within my skill sets, and trying understanding whether I enjoy backend more or front-end languages more, and they make my decisions as I was learning new things. So I'm happy to share some of the resources from there.
Yes, please and thank you. And even though I've only did WWCodes for a couple of weeks, but I also look on YouTube, I think I'd rather be a backend developer. That sounds more fun. And another question, if you don't mind, how do you go about getting yourself out there? Because I graduated my master's a couple of years ago. I'm still relatively young. I'm 27 and I have no coding experience beside these couple of weeks, but I know I want to do it. But how do I sell myself once I get more experience, like 6 months, a year? How do I just do it? Because I want to do it, but still new on the experience.
So
Go ahead.
Waiting to learn anything.
hi, Tanashi. So once you get an experience, right? So you can actually target any of the companies to check the LinkedIn post. A lot of companies have openings, and see they'll check to see if are you a good developer, like let's say backend developer, right? Are you able to code? And they might check some design questions and interview questions, technical questions, and if you pass, you will be offered a job, right? Usually that's how companies work. And sometimes they'll take you for like 3 months internship to permanent jobs or something like that. Once you have that solid experience, it's in your hands where you want to go. Do you want to get into a bigger company, or do you want to go deep into programming, or do it's up to you at that point, and you will have a lot of opportunity. It's just initial getting that job onto your hand and working your way from there.
Yeah, and just building off of that, because it sounds like you're kind of going the self-taught route, which I think is great. I think it can be important to have like a portfolio of sorts, like on GitHub or wherever, where you're working on projects, practicing that, and that's good for you, and it helps other people to see your code. So I would do that. Related to what I was saying earlier, I would identify what is your ideal first role, and then work backwards from there. And you can do a lot of stuff, like you can look at other people who are in that role, maybe reach out to people. I think on like the note of like mentorship or all of that, I think whenever you have like a really clear ask for someone, like let's say you found someone who was a bootcamp grad who is now a software engineer or whatever. I think if you reach out to them and have like, hey, I'd love to spend 15 minutes just chatting about how you did this or what I can do to prepare for interviews or whatever, I think a lot of people would say yes. I think more generic reach outs, I think, 50-50 on how successful they are, but I would kind of identify people who are in a similar role and go from there.
Thank you.
And just to add, there are a lot of hackathons and a lot of like coding camps. There is like a lot of open source that's available. So I'm pretty sure like if you can tap on some of those, like I think some of it is also about you going and voluntarily participating some of those, like creating probably your own website, like having I think as Christine was alluding, like, having that GitHub repository, right? But then eventually building your website, which kinds of talks to all the great work that you have done, is a great way of creating your brand and doing a personal storytelling. So I'm sure that's going to take you to great heights. I don't think like you need to have so much years of experience to get to it. I'm pretty sure like, you are already getting those skill sets, and just apply those and start selling it, like brag about it. I think as a woman, we don't do a good job of bragging, I'll be honest with you. So just brag about it. Like it's a nice way to kind of sell yourself. So just do it.
Okay, I'll keep doing it. And I'll be very active on the Slack chat for a lot of questions. Thank you.
And Susie also just posted a couple of additional comments, looking for apprenticeships at companies, as well as Tech Together as your first hackathon. So in case you missed those, be sure to check that out.
Okay, thank you.
And I think that there was a similar question. I don't know. There was another Jacqueline as well. So the other Jacqueline, did they answer your questions enough? Because it was again about career transitioners on how to get their first job when the background's not in tech or it's not linear, or how to even get an interview and recruiters don't get your journey. So
Yeah,
how do you tell your story?
Right. It's a similar question, except for I was not in one place at one job for 20 years. So when Rekha was talking about try lots of different things to see where you like, I did a lot of that. So currently I'm a clinical nutritionist in oncology research and also a medical voiceover artist. Previous to that, I worked in biotech. And then before that, I was a flight attendant for many years. So it's definitely not been a linear journey. And so talking about it is one thing, but even getting in the door to be seen is another. When people are just, when you're being, they're looking first just at your LinkedIn profile to even get a call for an interview, or so to speak. And so I was just wondering if anyone had any suggestions on how to present yourself in a way, or what you can do to kind of make it a more linear, cohesive story.
I think so. Yeah, I think you're definitely right that I think working on your story is the way to go. And I think that I know in a lot of cases these days, people don't really do cover letters or whatever, but I feel like this might be a good, depending on like with any of this, I would evaluate like, where am I struggling in the application process? Are people never getting back to me? Is it after I meet with the recruiter, I'm not moving on? Am I not doing well at the interview stage? I don't know if you've gotten to that point at all yet, but like assuming the issue might be that because of your background, you don't have prior experience, people maybe aren't sure what role you're looking for, anything like that. I think finding any opportunity to pitch that, I think, and really practicing and getting that down, I think is important. So that could be in a cover letter / sometimes they have like, something to fill out in the application. Could be when you're first meeting with the recruiter, really like having a great like 2-minute story about like, here's what I did before, here's why I wanted to go into software engineering, like this is my goal in the future or whatever. And like really practicing that, maybe get with a friend and like practice it. It can be kind of awkward, but it's good to get that down with someone you trust, and then, easier to do. And then, when you get to the interview phase, same thing. And I would also not be afraid to bring in all of your past experience. I think even if it's not in one exact thing, I think the experience you have there, I'm sure in customer service and all of that kind of stuff, like I think can really, there's a lot of ways that it does apply to software engineering or any other role. And so I would really like think about what are my top like stories or some of my biggest successes I've had in my career, and then like be ready to relate that when you get to the interview phase.
Thank you.
I would share that it's all about crafting your story and finding that narrative. So rather than listing out all of your experience, really come together and start thinking, why did you choose those jobs? Why there must have been some commonality that drawn you to those positions that you really are excited about. And on LinkedIn, and as well as on your profile, on your resume, you should really be thinking about just the about me section really on top, and crafting that really tightly. So when I go through your resume and I see all your experience, I'm like, oh yeah, it's all tying together. Like I can see why she did this. Like this is her strength. Like this is her core strength, right? And she's demonstrating it over and over and over again, even in very, very different roles. So Susie, I think you have a resume workshop coming up. Is that right, if I
Yes.
remember?
Yes,
I think that might be
absolutely.
like a great opportunity to go show that resume and really work on that like header portion
Yeah.
about who you are, and really crafting that really tightly so that everything below it is almost like, yeah, of course she did this. This is why she would be great. And I think that really would help as well.
Yeah, I think that summary at the top, I totally agree with that. Like, people are going to give your resume like if it gets through the machines, if it's going through, you know, an ATM. But yes, they're going to look at that, and then they're going to decide whether they look any further. So really kind of honing that top few sentences about what are you as your core, lean into your strengths, as Christine said, I think is a great way to do that. Well,
Thank you.
this panel has been amazing. Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it. Please join us on Slack, and I will put some of these great quotes that I've been trying to type down really quickly. I'm going to put them in Slack and put the resources that people have shared as well. And Shana just put our Slack invite in the link, and I hope to see you all there and to see you at the salary negotiation or the resume workshop. We'd love to see you there as well. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.